I'll call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for those who have passed away in our community. Also, please keep in your thoughts tonight the citizens of Ukraine that are continuing to fight for their democracy and their freedom. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Donahue?
Here. There will be a motion to move item 5B to 7th order for a final vote based on the attached emergency certificate. This legislation is the insurance brokerage services for the city. Please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, single tax office city funds distributed dated March 18, 2022. 3B, minutes of the Ethics Board meeting held January 19, 2022. 3C, overtime review for all departments as provided by City Controller dated March 23, 2022 for the period January through March 2022. 3D, minutes of the Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority meeting held January 20th, 2022.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have two quick ones. So tomorrow at St. Lucy's Parish over on West Side, it's their spaghetti dinner. Wednesday and Thursday, dinners will be served from 5 to 8 p.m., takeouts 3 to 5 p.m., containers provided, and it's $14. Tickets are available at the door. And then also next, our friends over at Friends of the Poor and Family to Family are proud to invite the community to our annual Easter food and Easter basket giveaway on Tuesday, April 12th at the Scranton Cultural Center. This is a drive-through event, and that is all I have. Thank you. I'm sorry, it's between 10 and 4 p.m. That's all I have. Thanks.
Do any other council members have announcements at this time? I have one. There'll be the city of Scranton is hosting a electronic recycling event this coming Saturday at Scranton High School parking lot from 9 till 1 or when the trucks are full. Items that can be recycled free of charge include printers, fax machines, audio-visual equipment, microwaves and small appliances, exercise equipment, calculators, gaming systems, bed frames and rain spouting, keyboards and mice, cell phone and laptop batteries, telephones, cell phones, filing cabinets, cables and cords, desktops and laptop computers, UPS battery backups, string Christmas lights, metal items and water heaters, DVD players and VCRs, toner and ink cartridges, and car batteries. Additional items that can be recycled with a fee include dehumidifiers for $25, televisions under 42 inches for $38, refrigerators for $35, washers and dryers for $20, dishwashers for $20, stoves for $20, floor freezers for $35, console stereos in the cabinet for $35, computer monitors, $18, air conditioners, $25, paint cans, $5 per 1 gallon can, floor copiers for $20, and televisions in wooden cabinet protection or over 42 inches are $55. Cash and checks only, and please make checks payable to Responsible Recycling Services or RRS, and that is this Saturday, April 2nd from 9 to 1 or when the trucks trucks are full at the Scranton High School parking lot. And that's all I have. Mr. Voldenberg?
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
First on the list is Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowanitz, Scranton. First, I want to wish a happy Vietnam Veterans Vet Day. It was on the radio this afternoon that they're recognizing all veterans of the Vietnam War. So I salute you. Also, I noticed that the 2020 audit is on the city's website. When you go to City Archives, Financial Reports and Audits, it's there for anybody who would care to review it. Do we have an update on the status of union contracts?
They are still under negotiation.
Oh, I'm sure they're working very hard. Do you realize that 25% of this year is gone? Okay. And I am waiting eagerly to see the database restored on real estate taxes and refuse fees. That will be very helpful. With regard to 5B, the insurance contract with Knowles, what is the cost of that contract?
Let me pull it up and I'll address
Well,
that.
I looked at it. In the backup, I couldn't find a cost listed. That's very curious that with an emergency certificate, the one key item, the money, is not listed. And did anybody go through the backup on that and notice that too? You're gonna approve this and not know what it's gonna cost?
I
You
thought I
writing them
saw
a
it
blank
somewhere.
check?
I thought I saw it somewhere, but let me double
Okay.
check and see where.
I have it printed out if you would like to see it. There's a mention by the contractor of a $250 contribution to Page Cognetic. When did that occur? There was no date listed. And does that pose any kind of issue with the ethics code?
I think that would be a question for the ethics board.
Okay, but that's something you should pursue if you decide to pass this evening. You should have caught that as you were reviewing the backup. I was pleased to see that the overtime is getting back into line. Well, LIPS does have a 94% usage rate of their budget. The overall overtime budget is at 29%, which is pretty close to where it should be. And one other thing, I was looking at the resumes of the people being appointed or reappointed to boards. There was a gentleman by the name of David Fanouf, and I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name. He's been reappointed to the Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority. He had a most interesting resume. Did anybody read it? Okay, don't raise your hands all at once now. The first line really caught my attention. It says, and I quote, "Authorized to work in the U.S. for any employer." Now, I'm not quite sure what he's getting at there. So am I, and so are all of you, and so are all of you. I don't know what that means. Education, BS in Business, Lackawanna College, Scranton, September 1965 to June 1967. Now, 1967 was a very good year. I remember it well. I also remember that in 1967, there was no Lackawanna College. There was a Lackawanna Junior College, which only gave out associate degrees, no four-year degrees. First bachelor's degree was awarded in 2017. Now, let's assume that this is a mere typo. I'm wondering who sent this resume forward. Did they read it? Because this is embarrassing to both the administration and to Mr. Fanoff if this is a typo. Because there are no two-year BS degrees from Lackawanna College in 1967. So this is either an unintentional error, or what is somebody trying to pull on the people of Scranton? This is why I get irritated, because you say last week, Well, I want to know who dropped the ball on the Knowles contract. How did that sneak up on us? Or who dropped the ball on the 2022 budget that required 95 amendments? It's called a lack of attention to detail and a lack of supervision. And these things keep coming up constantly. The majority of the employees are excellent, but not this one.
Thank you. Next on the list, Lee Morgan.
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. I didn't come to follow up on the questions I asked Council the last time I was here, but I'll do that in the future. But the one thing that I have here first is that I find the Ukrainians to be remarkably brave, considering they still don't have the weapons that they need and that their children are being indiscriminately killed. And I just hope America would do more for them and the world. And the thing I'm here for tonight is, you know, I'm watching reassessment take place in other places, and I'm sure that this county wants to pursue that. And I think that not only should the county, but the whole government take a very hard look at what's taking place in the world. Because, you know, we just got done talking about, well, $68+ million being spent of borrowed money. And the world is moving away from the dollar. Okay, it's moving towards the Chinese currency. Saudi Arabia is sitting down now and seriously contemplating not taking US dollars for purchases. And as the American dollar gets weaker and weaker, it's going to have some very serious ramifications for the people in this country in the amount of debt we're holding. And when you take a look at reassessments, it's time to cut the size not just of government, but of social programs. And I mean massive cuts, because this country can't carry anymore. And all the seniors, they shouldn't be moving into high-rises because they can't pay their property taxes. And when we come up with a reassessed value for a property, how do we know that property will ever sell for that much money? Is it just an abstract number with no real meaning? I mean, you know, think about it. If the government tells you your house is worth X amount of dollars and you can't sell it for that, was it ever worth that much? And should people be losing the things they worked all their life for? For what reason? And a 2.4% wage tax on every resident that lives in this city? Look at the bloodbath that the unions in the city have taken over the whole time the city's been here with the pension plans. The city never funded them ever. But yet the residents still owe the debt for it. But the real question to ask here today is, how much did the pensioners lose? Because if you didn't contribute your $2 million this year, it couldn't return a yield to the plan. You know, we've played a lot of silly games in America for a very long time. We're giving people money not to work. We've moved all our jobs offshore as if that was an answer. And we've got people crossing our border because they think they're going to come here and get something for free, that there's something here in America for free. It's really time to look around and think, you know, when you talk about spending this money, through the 30 years that this city was in recovery, did it ever cut its budget? Did it ever do anything along that line? Did anybody ever look into the fact that Chris Doherty changed the administrator of the fund from Mellon Bank to another administrator and it lost millions and millions of dollars? How about the sale of the Scranton Sewer Authority? The council president himself was against it, but yet he voted to put it on the agenda, and they did it. And then the reserve fund, for some reason, was pumped into the authority before the sale. So the city never realized anything from that sale like it should have, because the reserve fund was gone. It was like free money. I mean, is the city ever going to get this right? And people ask legitimate questions here every week, but they never get a legitimate answer. We've got to cut spending before we leave our children nothing worth having.
Thank you. Next on the list, Dave Dobson.
Good evening, Council. Dave Dobson, resident, taxpayer, Scranton citizen. I'd also like to mention Ukraine. And thanks to Mr. Poopski over there in Moscow, 250 to 300 million people may see a food shortage next year. That's 250 million people, not thousands. They're unable to plant. The Russians are planting landmines in the farm fields, so when you hit it, when a tractor hits it, but it being if the guy on the tractor isn't killed or the person on the tractor, then the tractor certainly is destroyed. And it's really trying. I support getting lots and lots of weapons to them. And it's a shame that Mr. Trump badgered Ukraine for so long, because he's part of it. He has that to be proud of. And I'd like to mention voting again. All kinds of schemes are going on. Congress failed to get the Voting Rights Act passed, and it's not going to be pretty. I hope that people aren't standing in line for hours and hours and hours only to be turned away. They cancel voting polls and close them because they're not handicapped accessible. And what makes handicapped accessible is an absentee ballot. And so get your votes out and let's start seeing a much better way of our turnout for votes, because too often they're almost sad. And I see the insurance, try to work together and get things straightened out. You know, years ago when I bought my house, I didn't have the trash bill, so it kind of ran over. Partly my fault, but when I called, the lady couldn't locate my property even though I'm telling her my address, you know. Okay, so the next year I paid dearly. So I started going down to downstairs to the treasurer's office. And the first year I paid it, and I asked that I be put on the list or wherever, the computer, and, you know. Okay, the second year, well, that's already the fourth year that I was in City Hall to pay it. And they took my name on a tattered envelope or something, and I still didn't get a trash bill. So the fifth year, I went and sat and waited for the employee that took my name on the envelope, the torn envelope, and she said, "Who did this?" "You did." So finally, after embarrassing somebody, I guess, I got my name on the trash, to get a trash bill. And that's the way it's been in the past in City Hall, and you have a lot of things to straighten out, but hopefully they will get straightened out and we can get along. I mean, don't mean to be political, but everybody in this as a Democrat, so it's your show, whether it's good or bad. And finally, I'd like to mention, I forgot the paper, on that school scores not increasing with additional funding for the school in Scranton, Pennsylvania. That's a ploy that was back with No Child Left Behind, which has been a dead issue for 15 years. They never did anything with it. They never came up with the subsidies for the behind students or anything, and it's a real shame. But it's my property taxes, not the school scores. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. That exhausts the sign-in sheet for this evening. Would anyone else like to address council?
Marie Schumacher. As with Joan, I would like to know the cost of the,
It's
what
one.
do we call it? That's
The insurance,
Yes.
it's going to be $1,071,000. It's an increase of $171,000
That's the
over.
next one.
And that's due to an increase in IT coverage, because you know we had the security breach.
Yeah.
So it's an increase there, and then also.
How much was that? Did they individualize it?
They didn't, but that was
Yeah.
given as a reason,
Yeah.
increase in our cyber insurance.
Okay, thank you. I would like to know what happened between the date of that letter of March 8th and last week as well. Where was it? Why wasn't it brought up?
That was my fault.
Oh, okay. No. I would like to have you guys, as much as you can, during these next few days, emphasize the participating in the Take the ARPA Budget Challenge that's available on the website, because it does expire at noon on the 4th. So it would be nice to hear from more people. I don't know, do we know how many people have responded so today?
They said tonight about just over 100 to date. So we're hoping that, their presentation tonight will also garner some participation.
Okay.
And it is at the top of the website.
Is there a place for households that do not have the internet to participate?
I could check with the administration, but I could, as Joan always likes to point out, there's always the public library.
Okay. Now, the single tax office has been putting only the current year dollars on the distributions. I found it helpful to see how it was the prior year, that comparison. So I would urge you to ask the single tax office to go back to that form and show last year's, because I do think there's value in that. And also, do we need to I noticed they've collected some business privilege and mercantile tax, and do we need a special, they must be delinquencies, so do we need a special account for that?
No, because we're still able to collect delinquent BP and Merck from past
Okay.
years.
Okay. When will we get a regular report from Portnoy on what they're collecting?
We did request one of those, and it's going to be back up on the website. The new city treasurer is just working through some issues in terms of what they collected.
Okay, yeah. Also, it would be nice to see a grant page that shows the grant applied for, who the donor will be, and when the grant expires, so we can not have them hanging forever.
We did get one of those about 6 months ago, I believe, but we will request another one.
Okay, I think they should be on a regular basis, whatever you guys decide, but it should be something regular.
And you're talking about grants that are awarded, correct?
Yeah, or when they die because the grant has expired. let's see, what is happening with the acoustics in this room? I thought they were supposed to happen in February, but I also thought it was February 2022.
So I've been in contact with, we've tried to contact the guy that put together the proposal for us. We haven't heard back from him. We need the specs, but ECTV has agreed to help us out with putting the specs out there to put an RFQ and an RFP bid, because, we're not sound experts, so we don't want to miss any technical aspects of it.
Okay. Now, I know that you got, the emergency for the insurance was obvious and expedite it, but what's happening with the emergency thing for the Wyoming Avenue cleanup?
So that's going through the process. We're waiting on one of the property owners to sign off on the access. Then it has to go down to DEP, which will be a quick turnaround, and then it will be.
Okay, I'll bring the rest next week.
I'll give you an additional 30 seconds if you have anything, since I interrupted.
Oh, no, I just would like to know which of you, because I have a question on one of the reports from the assessor's appeals. Which of you are the attendee to those?
The city solicitor, the city law office should be sending someone to
Well, you
the
have the
assessment
ability,
appeals.
you have this body has the ability for a spot, too, so.
On the in terms of what? I'm sorry.
The appeals to assessments, because there was a humongous one. I didn't bring it to the podium because I knew I'd run out of time, but that affects how much we can bring in, too. so.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Would anyone else like to address council this evening? Mr. Voldenberg?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. King, do you have any motions or comments this evening?
I don't.
Mr. Schuster, do you have any motions or comments this evening?
No, nothing at this time.
Dr. Rothchild, do you have any motions or comments this evening?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Mr. McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments this evening?
Yes. Mr. Voldenberg, did we hear anything back on the Clearview Street situation that I asked you to look into a couple weeks ago?
Nothing as yet, Mr. McAndrew, nothing
Please,
from our law office.
Well, put a little pressure, okay?
I'll
Just a year and a
follow up
half.
tomorrow.
Thank you. And then also, so last week, I had you inquire about the ATV issue, where it's starting up again now that the weather's warm, and I asked if we could, contact the chief of police for any new strategy. So I'm happy to report that I met with him yesterday, and I had a great conversation with him. And the chief is putting together, like we said, we talked about the legislation that was approved last year with regards being illegal to drive up to a pump and get gas in your ATV. So that's still in force. I think it's a deterrent. But the chief is thinking outside the box, which is pretty cool. He's putting together a strategy utilizing technology. When I say technology, he's still putting this together. He's going to, eventually when it's all done, he's going to present it. I'll let him present it better than I, because for the most part, we're going to use the cameras that are within the city to identify, track, and then issue citations. Okay, so with that said, I'm thrilled that I had the meeting with him, and when he puts this whole plan together, he's going to present it to council. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Schuster, do you have something to add?
Yes, Mr. Voldenberg, can we also reach out to the administration? I know there was supposed to be some work coming up on the Meadowbrook culvert. I know we knew that there were some blockages there, and I think there was a new contract put together, which I heard was signed, but I don't think there's been any movement on it yet. So if we could just get an update on where we are at with that.
I will, Mr. Schuster.
Thank you.
Just a couple updates. Last week I brought up that the crime statistics were last up on the SPD website were last updated on 12/13/21. Chief Carroll did advise the update is a priority, and they're working with IT to implement updated records for the site. Fire Chief Judge will be in next week to discuss the SAFER grant once again in our caucus. Also, Mr. Voldenberg, I think it was about a year ago, maybe over the summer, but we put in a request for, or passed on a request for a potential four-way stop sign at the corner of House and Walnut. And I know that the police department had put up, you know, the speed detectors where they capture speeds. So would we be able to just follow up with them and see if they have the required data to make a decision based off, you know, what they were able to collect so far?
I will, sir.
Thank you. We did get a email from a citizen that wanted to acknowledge DPW and what a wonderful job they did on Boulevard Avenue between the Troop City line and Parker Street. The resident was impressed with the work and hours the DPW is committed to cleaning up the area. She claims it's a real facelift, and she just wanted to let the DPW and crew know how pleased they are with the effort they put in. And that was that. I also got a complaint regarding a property in Green Ridge as it relates to drug activity and suspicious people at night, so I'll pass that along to the police department too. And I've also got a complaint regarding sewer covers in the Oakmont section of East Mountain. I guess the crews were out there inspecting the sewers and broke some of the covers, so I did reach out to American Water. I haven't gotten a response yet, but I will follow up on that this week. And that's all I have for tonight. Mr. Voldenberg?
5B for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract between the City of Scranton and Knowles Insurance, LLC, to provide insurance brokerage services to the City of Scranton. Emergency certificate attached.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question?
On the question, so of course I'm going to vote yes for this because that would never put the city in jeopardy. But I still have concerns about the lack of processes. So last week I did inquired about why it happened, what happened, why it happened, who's responsible for this close call with the lapse of coverage. Mr. Voldenberg, please check on that again for me, because I did not receive any information. So when this happens, we have to have an emergency certificate. To me, an emergency certificate is an emergency that's out of someone's hands. That's considered an emergency. So you have to react, and I get that. So I get that we have to move it right to seventh order without a 3-read rule where we'd have time to discuss the bidders through the 3-week process and scrutinize maybe, you know, a document or some backup documents like you referred to earlier. So of course I'm voting yes, but I'm still not happy with the lack of the process or, you know, this sense of urgency. It's not an emergency. It's only an emergency when it's out of people's control. This wasn't out of people's control. This could have been done correctly. So, of course I'll be voting yes, but I had to say my piece.
Anyone else on the question? I would just like to add that I do think it's unacceptable that, you know, it's coming down with an emergency certificate. We can't put the city at risk. But I am hopeful that item 7B on our agenda tonight will make sure that this does not happen again, because it has a contract management portion of that software that will notify, you know, the proper parties of when a contract is coming up for renewal or is expiring. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to move item 5B to seventh order based on the attached emergency certificate.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to have move item 5B to seventh order. On the question?
On the question, I've made the motion. I'm happy to move it, but I'm not happy the reason why we're moving it.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5C for introduction, a resolution, appointment of Mitesh J. Patel, MACC, CMA, 244 Prescott Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18510, to the position of City of Scranton Treasurer, effective March 17, 2022.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? I would just like to say that since Mr. Patel has taken over as acting treasurer, and now as the official treasurer, he has been very responsive to all of council's inquiries to date, and I thank him for that. Anyone else on the question?
I agree. I believe he's actually hit the ground running, and I wish him well.
Anyone else on the question?
I'll third that.
On the question, I'd just like to say that in review of his resume, I was very impressed with his background, and I'm hopeful that he'll do great work in his position as treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction, a resolution, amending Resolution Number 175, 2021, entitled Amending Number 47, 2011, authorizing, empowering, and directing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to appoint liaisons between the City of Scranton and Berkheimer, the duly appointed collector of earned income tax for the Lackawanna County Tax Collection District, for the express purpose of sharing confidential tax information with the district for official purposes, to update City of Scranton representatives authorized to receive confidential tax information, to remove Mary Jo Sheridan and allow for the City of Scranton Treasurer, Mitesh Patel, MACC, CMA, to be authorized to receive confidential tax information.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction, a resolution, appointment of Mitesh Patel, MACC, CMA, 244 Prescott Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18510, to serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Lackawanna County Land Bank. Mr. Patel will be replacing Mary Jo Sheridan. The term of Mr. Patel will commence March 17, 2022, and will fill the remainder of the term of Ms. Sheridan, which is scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2025.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction, a resolution, reappointment of Jerry J. Weinberger, Esquire, 611 North Webster Avenue, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18510, as a member of the Board of Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority. Mr. Weinberger's term will expire on December 31st, 2027.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G for introduction, a resolution, reappointment of David Faniff, 1812 Academy Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18504, as a member of the Board of the Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority. Mr. Faniff's term will expire on December 31st, 2027.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, as pointed out earlier, just reviewing the resume, unless I'm incorrect, I'm not aware that Lackawanna College does offer a Bachelor of Science even to this date. However, it's my understanding Mr. Panoff has been serving on this authority for quite a while, and it's my understanding there have not been any issues or complaints, and quite frankly, I don't know that there's any requirements that you need an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree to serve on any of these committees, but it does appear that there may be some, issues with that resume.
Yeah, Mr. Voldenberg, would we be able to pass those concerns on to the administration and see if they could provide clarification on his resume before final passage next week?
I'll take care of it, Mr. Donahue.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5H for introduction, a resolution, reappointment of William R. Laser, CPA, PFS, CFE, 677 Mary Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18508, as a member of the Board of the Scranton-Lackawanna Health and Welfare Authority. Mr. Laser's term will expire on December 31st, 2027.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5H be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5I for introduction, a resolution, amending Resolution Number 183, 2019, entitled, Authorizing the Mayor and Other Appropriate City Officials to Execute and Enter into a Contract with Speck and Associates and Barry Isid and Associates for the City of Scranton Downtown Scranton Connectivity Plan to amend the contract for Speck and Associates only as well as reflect increased inflation costs of 10%.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5I be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved?
Second?
On the question? On the question, this was originally voted on in December of 2019. They were supposed to get to work during 2020. It was put on the back burner because of COVID. But I'm happy to see it's back on the agenda. It's well overdue, and it's moving forward. This was a brainchild of former mayor and councilman Wayne Evans, and I think it is a great idea and something that needs to be done in terms of our downtown. Anyone else on the question?
On the question, I agree. I'm glad to see that this will be getting started again. I am disappointed that there's a rise in costs associated with this project, but I do think that ultimately it'll be very beneficial for the city to increase our walkability and connections with other neighborhoods. Thank you.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5J for introduction, a resolution ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton to Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for up to $500,000 for Robinson Park rehabilitation.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5J be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5K for introduction, a resolution ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton to the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for up to $155,000 in funds for Oakmont Park rehabilitation.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5K be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6th order, no business at this time. 7th order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 40, 2022, authorizing the Mayor, Office of Economic and Community Development, and other appropriate city officials for the City of Scranton to execute and enter into an agreement with Broderick Excavating, Inc. to provide demolition of hazardous properties within the City of Scranton.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second?
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 41, 2022, authorizing the mayor, Office of Economic and Community Development, and other appropriate city officials for the City of Scranton to execute and enter into an agreement with OpenGov, Inc. to provide procurement software services to the City of Scranton.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second?
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 42, 2022, appointment of John Jack Rieger, 1116 Grandview Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18509, to the position of Information Technology Director effective March 7th, 2022.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 43, 2022, appointment of Kaylee Marion Pekulski, 910 Marion Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18509, to the position of Human Resources Director, effective January 11th, 2022.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E, formerly be 5B, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 44, 2022, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract between the City of Scranton and Knowles Insurance, LLC, to provide insurance brokerage services to the City of Scranton, emergency certificate attached.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
8th order, 8A, file the council number 9, 2022.
This piece of legislation is the updated zoning ordinance. It is tabled to allow for additional input and any amendments. If there is no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.